Julia and Mariana were a lesbian couple who were very excited about their vacation in a coastal city. After searching for a good while, they found an Airbnb that seemed perfect, with a beautiful view of the sea and modern decor. After hours on the road, the couple finally arrived at their destination, but the night had already fallen and they couldn't enjoy much of the city. As they prepared for bed, they realized that something was wrong in the room. A feeling of being watched invaded them, and after searching a lot, they found a secret camera installed on the ceiling of the room next to the window curtain. Frightened, the girls wasted no time and contacted Airbnb administration and the police. Airbnb administration agreed to immediately remove the cameras from the room and offer a new accommodation. However, the police did nothing. Although the administration was unable to identify the person responsible for installing the cameras, they took measures to ensure the safety of the two friends and decided not to charge them for their stay. Nonetheless, the experience left the two frightened, but they decided to stay in the new room because they wouldn't have to pay anything. The couple spent 2 more peaceful days on site, enjoying the view of the sea and the calmness of the city. However, on the 3rd night, they were surprised by a strange noise in the lock. Frightened, they decided to investigate, and to their surprise, they found an unknown man standing outside, with a shiny knife in his trembling hands. The man exuded an air of malice, and his features seemed distorted by a sick obsession with the two women. He advanced towards them, moving with a threatening calmness as they retreated, seeking a way out. Unfortunately, before they could escape, he grabbed Julia and violently threw her to the ground. Then he attacked Mariana with the knife, causing a deep cut on her arm. As they fought desperately for their lives, the man advanced with the knife in hand, fiercely cutting their clothes as they tried to protect themselves. Their cries for help echoed through the hallway, but unfortunately, no one was around to help them. The man was clearly determined to carry out his intention to kill them, leaving the two frightened and unsure of what to do. As the attacker was turned towards Mariana, injured on the ground, Julia seized the opportunity to grab a chandelier and used it to strike the man on the head, causing him to immediately collapse onto the floor. After knocking down the attacker, Julia and Mariana managed to escape from the room and ran desperately outside the house in search of help. They found some neighborhood residents on the street, and with their hearts racing and fear still present, they called the police, who promptly arrived at the scene. However, to the sadness of the two, the attacker had already fled, and no one could find him, leaving them with a feeling of insecurity and trauma for the rest of their lives. On a cool and pleasant autumn afternoon, a group of friends decided to spend the weekend hiking and camping in the forest. The group consisted of 5 people: Sophia, Lucas, Felipe, Fernanda, and Anna. Sophia was the leader of the group and always organized outdoor activities, while Lucas was the fearless adventurer who always got excited about the craziest ideas. Felipe was the calmest of the group, but he was still lively and fun, and Fernanda and Anna were Sophia's closest friends, always cheering the group up with their jokes and funny stories. They lived in a city nearby the forest and were used to hiking and exploring nature. Despite having different personalities, they all shared a common passion: outdoor adventures. They were excited to spend the weekend in the forest and enjoy the beauty of nature together. They had never ventured on this trail before, but had heard about its exotic beauty and the diversity of animals that inhabited the region. As they advanced, the afternoon gave way to darkness that slowly enveloped them. However, the dense darkness of the night was no match for the courage of the friends, who were well equipped with lanterns and enough supplies to face any challenge that came their way. The sound of leaves rustling in the wind and the singing of nocturnal animals created a mysterious and unsettling atmosphere, but the friends continued ahead, determined to reach the clearing where they would camp that night. However, the winding trail led them deeper into the forest, and the darkness that had once seemed like a mere shadow now felt dense and almost palpable. The friends walked in silence, focused on their own emotions and expectations. The cold wind howled among the trees, making the dry leaves whisper an unsettling sound. Occasionally, some small nocturnal creature moved in the shadows, which made the group startle. As they advanced, the howls of the wolves became more intense and frequent. The two boys in the group, Lucas and Felipe, began to worry but tried to remain calm, telling themselves that they were just animals. But when they realized that the howls were getting closer and seemed to be surrounding them, fear took over. They tried to speed up the group's pace, but the trail became steeper and more difficult, almost impossible to follow. Amid the howls of the wolves, the friends noticed a humanoid shadow moving among the trees. It was large and gray, making it almost invisible in the darkness of the night. They tried to illuminate it with their flashlights, trying to identify what it was, but it seemed that the creature knew how to dodge the light. Fear now engulfed them all, and they knew they needed to find shelter before it was too late. As the creature appeared, silence fell over the forest, as if the animals had vanished with the sunset, leaving only this strange creature that seemed to be heading towards them. Every now and then, the friends saw bright red eyes peering at them from the darkness. They tried to run, but their legs felt as heavy as lead. Suddenly, the creature emerged from the forest and looked directly at them, revealing a noseless face and a horrifying mouth on a slender body standing over 2 meters tall with long arms and legs. At that moment, everyone panicked. What was that thing? How could they escape from it? They started running, but the creature seemed to always be one step ahead. Just when they thought they were safe, it appeared again. Felipe, who was very careless, tripped over a tree root and fell, being grabbed by the monster in an instant. He screamed for help, but there was no time. The red-eyed, sharp-toothed creature was extremely fast and carried the boy into the middle of the forest. The friends screamed in terror and continued running. With their hearts beating fast, the remaining 4 friends spotted an abandoned cabin in the forest and ran towards it. As they approached, they noticed that the building was in ruins, with loose boards and broken windows. They knew it wasn't a safe place, but they didn't have many options. So, they entered the cabin and locked the door, seeking temporary shelter. The interior was dark and dirty, with spider webs hanging in every corner. The friends huddled in a corner, trying to control their breathing to not make any sound that could attract the creature. Meanwhile, the feeling of being watched doesn't leave their minds, until they heard a strange noise coming from outside. They approached the window very carefully, and as they looked out, they saw the creature lurking in the cracks of the cabin. Its monstrous features seemed illuminated by the moonlight, and its red eyes glowed like burning embers. Fear took hold of the friends, and they realized they needed to get out of there as quickly as possible. But while her friends panicked, Sophia, the leader of the group, kept calm and decided to explore the abandoned cabin for any clues or weapons that could help them survive. After rummaging through dusty shelves, she found an old diary. Sophia took the diary in her hands, with pages yellowed by time. She opened the cover and realized that the first pages contained detailed drawings of various animals in the forest. Each drawing was accompanied by handwritten notes, with precise information about the habits and behaviors of each animal. As Sophia turned the pages, she realized that the notes became increasingly complex and detailed. There were drawings of trees, flowers, and plants, as well as notes about the seasons and cycles of nature. It seemed that the author of the diary had lived in the forest for many years and accumulated a vast knowledge about the nature around him. Finally, Sophia came across a page that caught her attention. There was a drawing of a tall, pale creature with shining red eyes, just like the one they had seen in the forest. Below the drawing, there was a note written in trembling handwriting, as if the author was afraid while writing. The creature of the night is a being of darkness that has inhabited the forest for many years. It fears the light of the sun and hides during the day. If you are chased by it, seek shelter until the sun rises again. The creature is dangerous, but there is hope of escape, that is, if you survive until sunrise. Sophia Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine as she read the words written in the diary. She knew it was important to share this information with her friends and began to read out loud, while the others listened attentively. Now, with this new information, they felt that there was still hope. Unfortunately, the creature didn't give the friends much time to create an escape strategy. The monster started tearing apart the cabin with a terrifying violence, revealing a deteriorated and decaying interior. The friends tried to escape, but the creature relentlessly pursued them, emitting indescribable grunts and leaving a trail of destruction through the dense forest. The sound of trees being uprooted echoed through the woods, as if the creature was possessed by a supernatural force. In the midst of the chaos, Anna was caught and dragged into the darkness of the forest, crying and screaming for help as she disappeared from the sight of her friends, who were left empty-handed and unable to do anything to save her. With only Sophia, Lucas, and Fernanda left, they fought to survive amidst the terror of the night, not knowing when the creature would return to attack them. After Anna was dragged into the darkness, the friends were paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. The dense darkness of the forest seemed to swallow them while the terrifying creature was outside, ready to attack. The starlight was weak and ineffective against the monster, causing the group's uncertainty to grow even more. Desperate, they ran towards a clearing, where they made a large fire that illuminated the area with a warm glow, hoping to keep the monster at bay. Even so, they trembled with fear, not knowing if the flames would be enough to protect them. The sagacious Sophia took the opportunity to discuss with the group what they could do to survive if the fire wasn't enough. She shared what she had read in the diary found in the abandoned cabin, and they discussed strategies to keep themselves safe, deciding to arm themselves with improvised spears and flaming wood. As the hours passed, the group was confident that the monster wouldn't return, but around 4:30 in the morning, the creature emerged from the bushes around the campfire, its red eyes shining in the darkness. The friends quickly armed themselves with pieces of wood they found around the fire, using them as defense against the beast. The monster roared loudly and advanced ferociously, but the group's determination was strong and they kept the creature at bay. Sophia, Lucas, and Fernanda kept the creature at a distance with their pieces of wood while taking cover behind the fire. The beast roared furiously and attacked with sharp claws, trying to capture them. In a moment of carelessness, the creature grabbed Sophia's arm with its powerful jaws and pulled her out of the safety zone. Screaming in pain, Sophia grabbed a piece of wood and hit the creature, but couldn't free her arm. Lucas and Fernanda joined Sophia in the fight, delivering desperate blows against the monster. But the creature was too strong and ripped off Sophia's arm, causing her to scream in pain and desperation. In the middle of the battle, Lucas managed to impale the monster's shoulder with an improvised wooden spear. The creature grunted but continued its attack. Fortunately, for the friends, the sun began to rise in the distance, and the creature quickly fled to its hideout. Lucas and Fernanda were relieved, but Sophia was severely injured and needed urgent help. They improvised a tourniquet to stop the bleeding and carried Sophia on their shoulders, running towards the road in search of help until they found their way and were rescued by a truck driver who was horrified by what he heard from the 3 survivors. Luna was excited for her summer vacation. She had booked a beautiful house through Airbnb in a small recluded town in the mountains. The photos of the house looked amazing, with breathtaking views and elegant decor. Luna was eager to enjoy a peaceful and relaxing time in that place. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived for Luna. She put her luggage in the car and set off for the mountains, looking forward to reaching the house where she planned to spend the rest of her vacation. The winding road ahead seemed like a promising adventure, with stunning views and a feeling of freedom. Luna felt the wind on her face and the sun warming her skin, increasing her anticipation for the trip. She was excited to explore the small secluded town in the mountains and to enjoy a peaceful and relaxing time in the place. As soon as Luna arrived at the house reserved through Airbnb, a feeling of discomfort took over her. The property, which looked so charming in the photos, now exuded an air of neglect and abandonment. Luna noticed with disgust the mold stains that spread across the walls, along with an unpleasant odor that permeated the air. The dusty curtains and faded carpet were nothing like the promise of luxury she had seen online. Night fell, and Luna decided to take a relaxing bath before sleeping. But as soon as she stepped into the shower, she heard a strange noise coming from the drain. She tried to ignore it, but the sound became louder and more frightening. Suddenly, water began to come out of the drain, dirty and dark. Luna screamed in horror and ran out of the bathroom. She tried desperately to call the owner of the house, but her phone had no signal in that isolated area. As she walked down the hallway, she noticed something strange on the wall. There was an old painting that she had not seen before. It was an image of a woman with empty eyes and a sinister smile. Luna shuddered, feeling as if the painting's eyes were following her as she walked down the hallway. Luna tried desperately to leave the house, but all the doors and windows were locked, leaving her trapped in that place. Suddenly, a strange noise echoed upstairs, indicating that someone or something was moving around the house, despite Luna being alone. Her heart began to beat faster, and her hands became sweaty as she tried to control her fear. In a panic, Luna ran to hide in a closet. She closed the door carefully, but as her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she realized she was not alone. The air was filled with a rotten and nauseating smell, and something was breathing very close to her. Luna tried to scream, but the monster in the closet covered her mouth. She couldn't move, her body was paralyzed by fear. Suddenly, the closet door slowly opened, and the light revealed to Luna the hands of a dark and threatening figure. And so, Luna disappeared without a trace, leaving the Airbnb house stained with her blood and the fear she felt on that horrible night. It was a dark and spooky Halloween night in Ravenwood, a quaint and quiet town that seemed to have been transformed into a dark and sinister world. The town was filled with scary decorations, with pumpkins carved with demonic expressions and fake spider webs hanging on every corner. Children were trembling with excitement, barely able to contain their enthusiasm as they prepared to go door to door in search of candy and treats. But as the night progressed, the cold air and darkness seemed to envelop them, leaving them vulnerable to anything that might be lurking in the shadows. Hearing rumors about a haunted house on the outskirts of town, Lena and her friends Tom and Diana decided to venture out to find out if the stories were true. As they approached, they saw that the house was in ruins, with walls covered in moss and spider webs hanging in every corner. The strangely ajar door invited them to enter an unknown and frightening world. Despite their fear, they decided to explore the interior of the abandoned house, unaware that they were about to discover something terrifying. Upon entering the abandoned house, Lena and her friends pulled out their flashlights to see the way better. It didn't take long for a feeling of oppression to start manifesting itself, as if the atmosphere was charged with negative energy. They immediately felt uncomfortable, as if they were being watched closely. Ignoring the uncomfortable feeling, they began to explore the dusty rooms of the house, descending the creaky stairs with each step. As Lena and her friends ventured deeper into the abandoned house, their eyes were fixed on the decrepit and dusty furniture that filled the rooms. The torn and stained sofas looked like they had been used for the last time decades ago, while the tables and chairs were covered in spider webs and mold. The faded and worn carpets gave the impression that the house was undergoing a slow process of decay. In one of the rooms, there was a rusty iron bed with a stained and torn mattress thrown on the floor. Faded pictures of unknown people hung on the walls, framed with chipped gold. In another room, there was an old fireplace with pieces of coal scattered on the floor. The old and decrepit furniture added to the eerie atmosphere of the house. Suddenly, a shrill sound echoed through the house, leaving Lena and her friends petrified for a moment. They looked at each other, searching for answers, but none of them dared to speak. The silence returned, but it was interrupted by a heavy dragging, as if something or someone was being moved with difficulty upstairs. Lena felt a chill run up her spine, but decided they needed to find out what was going on. Diana, on the other hand, wanted to go back home because she was very scared, but it was Tom who made the decision to continue the expedition in the haunted house. The friends slowly and silently climbed the stairs, observing the dusty handrails and loose boards under their feet. As they approached the noise, it became increasingly loud and high-pitched, increasing the tension in their minds. When they reached the top of the stairs, they saw a slightly open door and heard the sounds of something heavy being dragged across the floor. Lena and her friends looked at each other for a brief moment before making a decision, gathering the courage to push the door and investigate what was happening. The room was dark and poorly lit, which forced the group to move further inside to see the interior of the room. Lena and her friends approached the canopy bed in the center of the room, and noticed that something was moving under the sheets. Lena reached out to pull them back and see what was underneath, but before she could react, a bony hand jumped out of the sheets and grabbed her arm. A sharp scream tore through the darkness as Lena struggled to break free from the cold, cadaverous grip. Her friends tried to help by kicking at the bony hand and body that emerged from the bed. Then, the windows of the house began to close, trapping them in that dark room. The eerie, macabre laughter of the spirit echoed through the walls, filling the space with a chilly, somber fear. With great effort, they managed to release Lena and ran frantically through the dark corridors, tripping over old furniture and sliding on dusty floors. The skeleton continued to laugh as it slowly chased them, hurling heavy objects in their direction and causing deafening crashes that echoed through the walls. Finally, the group arrived at a dead end as they realized that even the exit door had been closed, and the monster approached with a malicious smile. Lena and her friends tried to fight against it, hitting the monster with objects that did nothing against the skeletal creature's body. The monster just laughed even louder, leaving the friends with a sense of helplessness and despair. Suddenly, the group's flashlights stopped working, everything went dark, and Lena realized that she was alone. Her friends had disappeared without a trace, and the house was completely silent. She tried to run back to the entrance, but the doors and windows were locked, and she was trapped inside that scary place. Fear enveloped her completely as she realized that the skeleton had gotten what it wanted: more souls for its collection. Lena knew that this was the end, and there was no escaping it. And that's how, in tears, Lena and her friends had their spirits trapped in the haunted house of Ravenwood, where they remain trapped to this day. Sophie was a lively young woman who always enjoyed traveling. When she planned her vacation, she decided to use Airbnb to find a comfortable place to stay. She finally found an amazing apartment in the heart of the city. The price was reasonable and the photos looked great, so she didn't think twice about booking it. On the first day, everything seemed perfect. The apartment was exactly like the pictures, and Sophie felt comfortable in her new temporary home. But at night, she began to notice something strange. The apartment was located in a noisy neighborhood, but she began to hear heavy footsteps from the floor above. She ignored it at first, thinking that her neighbors were just noisy, but as the days went by, she began to notice that the footsteps seemed to follow her movements. Sophie began to feel uncomfortable. She realized that her personal belongings were being tampered with while she was away, and that some things had mysteriously disappeared. She began to feel like someone was always watching her, hiding in the shadows. One night, Sophie woke up in the middle of the night with the feeling that someone was in the living room. She smelled a strong perfume, but couldn't see anyone. She began to scream for help, but no one answered. She hid in the bathroom, but the strong smell of perfume followed her. The next day, Sophie discovered that her apartment door had been forced open. She realized that her stalker had entered her apartment while she was sleeping. She immediately called the police, but when they arrived, there was no sign of the intruder. Sophie never used Airbnb again. She still has nightmares about the stalker who pursued her in the apartment, and has never felt safe in her own home again. She never knew who the intruder was, but she knows that moment will haunt her thoughts forever. It was a dark and stormy night, with heavy rain and howling winds that made John's car dangerously sway on the deserted and poorly lit road. He was alone, and the deafening sound of the rain beating on the car roof was the only thing he could hear as he struggled to see through the storm. Suddenly, John saw a strange figure at the side of the road. It was a very beautiful woman wearing a flowery dress, with long blonde hair that was flying with the wind. She was holding an umbrella and seemed to be hitchhiking. John was intrigued. What would such a beautiful woman be doing alone on that deserted road on a dark and rainy night? John hesitated for a moment, but then decided to stop and offer the woman help. When she got into the car, she thanked John for the ride and asked him to take her to the town ahead. John noticed that the girl's perfume was sweet and her voice was soft and captivating. He started talking to her, and the woman politely replied. John noticed that she had many things in common with him. It seemed that, somehow, she knew the right answer to all his questions, which made him a little uncomfortable. Then, suddenly, she began to try to seduce him with words and touches on his arms and legs. John was surprised, but said nothing. Over time, the girl kept advancing her touches on the guy's body. John even tried to resist, but the woman seemed to have a hypnotic power over him. He felt as if he were trapped in a dream, unable to resist her charms. The more she touched him, the stronger the hypnotic effect was, and John found himself being dominated by a feeling of pleasure he had never felt before. Suddenly, the woman stopped caressing John's body and whispered something in his ear with a different voice. He felt a pang of fear when he realized that he couldn't understand what she was saying. That was when he noticed that her eyes had changed color and her seductive smile had disappeared. John felt a shiver down his spine and immediately stopped the car in the middle of the road. He asked the girl what was going on, but she remained silent. Until she started laughing, a low and sinister laugh that made John tremble with fear and jump out of the car. At that moment, the woman turned into a horrible creature. Her eyes turned red like embers, her skin wrinkled as if she were very old, and her nails turned into sharp claws. She jumped on John, who fought with all his might to free himself. The creature was strong and fast, and its movements were fluid and agile. John realized that he was fighting against something supernatural, something he had never seen before. As they fought, John had a terrifying vision. The creature's face turned into something even more grotesque, her blonde hair fell out, and she showed sharp teeth and menacing eyes. She grunted and growled in a language that John couldn't understand. Then he tried to run away on the road in the rain, but the creature grabbed his back with its sharp claws, making him scream in pain. After being immobilized by the monster, John realized that the only way to survive was to fight the creature. He used all his strength to get rid of her, punching and kicking in all directions. John managed to hit the creature a few times, but she continued to attack him fiercely, hitting his arms and face with her huge claws. As they fought, John, who was badly injured, managed to find an opening to open the hood of the car and grab a lug wrench, which he immediately used to strike the monster on the head. After the strong blow, John noticed that the creature was losing strength. Its movements became slower, and its claws decreased in size. He saw an opportunity and attacked again, thrusting the wrench into the monster's eye with a powerful and final blow, causing it to fall to the ground, motionless. John looked at it, with a mixture of relief and horror. He realized he had fought against something not of this world, something he couldn't understand. He ran, bloodied, to his car, with his heart pounding, and accelerated as fast as he could to get out of that place.
Julia was a talented programmer who was always seeking to evolve her knowledge. In her relentless pursuit of innovation, she dedicated her time and energy to improving the work she developed at TechVision, the company she had been working for over 5 years. Her passion for developing AI systems knew no bounds, and she was tireless in her quest for increasingly advanced solutions, just like many of her colleagues. However, one day, Julia began to notice something strange in the behavior of her coworkers. They were acting in a peculiar manner, with empty and lifeless expressions as they stared at their computer screens. The automatic and emotionless attitude seemed to have taken hold of them, and Julia couldn't help feeling that something sinister was happening at TechVision. At that moment, Julia didn't pay much attention to it, until one day she was summoned to a meeting with the company's CEO. He presented her with the company's latest project with the following words: "This is a revolutionary artificial intelligence project that can predict people's emotions and offer solutions to manage them. The system has a chip that is plugged into the person's brain, and once connected, the chip creates a direct connection with your phone, where you can analyze and control your emotions. So if you're angry, you can switch to calm. If you're sad, you can switch to happy." "What do you think, Julia?" said the CEO. She was impressed with the idea, but at the same time, she felt a chill run down her spine. She began to ask some questions about how the project would work and what the ethical implications of such a system would be. The CEO answered all of Julia's questions evasively and seemed more interested in the financial benefits of the project than in any ethical issues. Julia began to worry about the project and decided to investigate further. She worked day and night to understand the code and logic of the system, and in doing so, she discovered something shocking. The system not only predicted people's emotions, but it could also manipulate them on its own. It used sophisticated algorithms to analyze people's emotions and offer personalized solutions to manage them automatically. This included using subliminal suggestions to change the way people felt and acted. Julia was horrified by what she had discovered and decided to confront the CEO. She explained all the ethical implications of the system and how it could be dangerous to manipulate people's emotions. The CEO didn't seem to care and told Julia, "Your job is to develop the system and not to worry about the ethical implications or how the software will be used." Julia realized that she needed to act quickly and decided to leak information about the project to the press. However, TechVision soon discovered her intentions and fired her on the grounds that she was no longer aligned with the company's purposes. This dismissal made it even more difficult to collect evidence for Julia's denunciation. She found herself isolated, unemployed, and with few options to expose the truth to the world. Within months, the AI system was launched and spread rapidly on a global scale. Millions of people started using the system, unaware that their feelings were being manipulated. Julia, concerned about the dangers that technology represented, tried to alert people using social media and trying to trigger journalists, but her attempts were in vain. She was silenced by high-ranking executives at the company who didn't want anything to hinder the success of the technology. Julia began receiving death threats and found herself alone in her battle against the system she had helped create. Over time, people who used the AI system began to act increasingly strange and violent. Soon, society collapsed, with people fighting against each other and chaos spreading throughout the world. Those who did not use the system were also affected, as they were surrounded by violent and emotionally uncontrolled individuals. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, and humanity seemed to be on the brink of extinction. Julia, now one of the few people who were still lucid, realized that humanity was lost. She witnessed horrible scenes of violence and carnage on the streets, with people being controlled as if they were machines, acting like zombies and attacking anyone who wasn't using the TechVision chip. Will Julia be able to survive? Subscribe to the channel and follow the outcome of this story.